We actually have the photocopies of what I prepared yesterday. Now we can go through it together once, and that probably, hopefully, answers all your questions. And then you will also get, now we just have photocopies for those who are not allowed to have like a device, but you can also get an electronic copy. So for now we have 15 copies, that should be enough for everyone. Plus there's the possibility to get like an e-copy. Yeah. It's only 2 pages and a little more. But to return to what I said earlier, so knowing emptiness, knowing it conceptually first. You understand, first you can understand it conceptually, again through an image, excuse me, through a mental image. What does emptiness mean to you? It's like a representation of what it means to you. And that conceptual understanding of emptiness is similar to, it's limited. You never really get at the actual thing. The actual thing doesn't appear to you directly. Just as when someone uses words, even wanting to express emptiness, but they're always limited. It's always through these words that are symbolic for whatever, that represent whatever you want to express, but you never really fully express. You cannot try to explain emptiness, say, try to explain the taste of chocolate. You're limited to words that are not actually chocolate, that are just symbolic. So similarly, when we think about chocolate, trying to understand what it tastes like, we'll never really get a full sense what it's like, because the generic image is like the words. It's what helps us to get at the actual thing, right? Like when, again, you can become aware of your own generic image. If I were to say, think of what your breakfast looked like this morning, right there. Think of an elephant, right there. So there's an elephant, yes please. There's an elephant appearing to every one of us differently. To everyone it means something different. So this image that appears to our mind is similar to words. They symbolize something for us. That's what it means for us to be an elephant, but it's not a real elephant. Which is why when we realize emptiness for the first time, it's all conceptually, through this image. So what does emptiness mean to us? It's through that we first comprehend it. And that is amazing. So let's not underestimate that experience. But we need to strengthen it now, because this is the mind that can potentially help us to at least weaken our obscurations, everything that prevents us from becoming liberated or enlightened. However, the mind, its quality needs to strengthen. It needs to become stronger. So the first part is, as I said, shamatha, as in like, yeah. Yes.
What if you've realized emptiness in a previous lifetime?
Oh, that is different. Then it's not the first time that you realize it. I'm saying when you realize it for the first time, I'm actually saying not just in this life, but in other lifetimes. So definitely some have realized emptiness in a previous life, and for them it's just a matter to connecting back to that experience. Yes. That's why you have some beings, they learn about the Dharma and right away they shoot up in their understanding, in their, they were already, when they were small, they were different. I'm thinking of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who was such a unique boy. And he learned the Dharma in no time. It made total sense to him. Then he started teaching it, and his teaching, because it came from his own experience, were so different. So yeah, I'm very sure His Holiness realized emptiness in the past life, and he was able to teach it so effectively. Ever since he was young, he was. Anyway, but talking about it, like really doing it for the, oh, okay, thank you. Doing it for the first time, then we need first to stabilize that mind so that we can remain with emptiness for some time longer. And that is only possible if we have a type of focus that is not distracted here and there, that has focus and clarity for, like they said, at least 4 hours. But you can't do that initially with emptiness. That's too difficult. So you leave emptiness for the time being and you start focusing on, I don't know, the Buddha in front of you. That's a very popular object. But for us Westerners, we like to use the breath. Okay. And then from there, over time, if your mind has the right, like all the preconditions, it's very important to have a very calm mind. And that calm mind comes about through ethical conduct, which is not just physical and verbal, it's mainly the mind. If I want to harm others, I have a lot of resentment, the mind is stressed out, it cannot be calm. Which is why mental, physical, and verbal moral discipline calms the mind naturally, and then you have already the basis for then focusing on a particular object so that calm mind can develop. And of course, you can't use the internet. I don't think if you do shamatha, you should use the internet because it's so quick and distracting, and you should totally shut out any external kind of stimuli. Because if you don't, again, your mind is all over that. So to focus on the internal breathing, and it seems terribly boring if we think about it, but it's very effective if you have the right kind of mind, the right kind of foundation already. And then once you have shamatha, you now take that focused mind, focus on whatever is your object, let's say the breathing, and with that focused mind, you now change to emptiness. And you start to analyze, you try to utilize this focused mind that, you know what, it is in that focused mode, it's in that focus mode, right? Then you focus on emptiness and start to analyze. But then right away the mind becomes distracted. You go back to the focus mode. So you alternate, focusing with the concentrated mind, first focusing on the breath, focusing on emptiness, analyzing emptiness. Then that focused mind dissipates, go back to breathing, one-pointedly focusing on breathing, one-pointedly focusing on emptiness, using the same mind in that mode, focusing on, reflecting on emptiness. So if you do this alternating back and forth in that way, again and again, going back, the moment it's distracted, you go back. Slowly, that focused mind learns to analyze single-pointedly without distraction. So you can even focus on emptiness, kind of even analyze in a very subtle way, and it still works. You can do it. And they say your mind becomes like a still lake, totally focused, with a tiny fish moving underneath the surface without disturbing the surface. There are no ripples. So you can actually train your mind to reflect on emptiness with that conceptual mind, realizing, knowing emptiness, but still taking into consideration emptiness of this body, emptiness of other phenomena, for instance. So having that very subtle reflective aspect, and because of shamatha and the reflection analysis having been combined, now you have a union of calm abiding and special insight. In other words, one mind has both functions. Both functions are active, but they don't hinder each other. Seems impossible right now, right? But it makes sense. Single point of focus, analysis, single point of focus. So just focusing on emptiness, you do have a slight analytical factor going on, but it's okay. But that is like the flame is now very stable. The flame is stable, but it's not yet bright enough. Now you need to continue with that union of calm abiding and special insight, realizing emptiness conceptually. Continue to meditate again and again and again and again. And slowly that generic image will fade. And at some point you realize emptiness directly. Right? That seems impossible, because how would that even work? When you first know it conceptually, you have this generic image, that sense of what emptiness means to you appearing to your mind, that just as the words are like what takes you to the closest to something, just as the words, go as close as you can when you express something that is actually beyond words. So similarly here, that generic image helps you to get at emptiness, which is actually beyond that generic image. That's why you don't stop there. Your degree of concentration combined with that mind is incredible, but it's not clear enough. The mind needs to be much clearer in the sense it needs to have the total experience of just emptiness, with nothing interfering, no appearance being between you and the experience of emptiness, right? So if you do this long enough, that generic image will slowly grow weaker, and at some point you realize emptiness directly. And what is so incredible about that direct experience about emptiness is that, well, one is, it's said to be a non-dual mind. No inherent existence appears. To any other mind, things still appear inherently existent. So when you realize emptiness conceptually, emptiness appears to exist inherently to that mind. So you still have that appearance of inherent existence. So even emptiness appears to exist inherently. But when you realize it directly, that appearance has gone. Nothing other than emptiness appears to it. Plus, usually when we perceive something, from the perspective of that mind, there is like a sense, as if here's the mind and there's the object. It seems like a separation, right? We kind of are aware of that, like my mind is perceiving something, I'm perceiving something, that distance. But when you realize emptiness directly, the mind is so absorbed in the object, that distance disappears. You're just totally absorbed. There's no sense of, I'm perceiving empty, that disappears. And they say that your mind and emptiness becomes like water being poured into water. So if your mind is water, the object is water, and you pour one into one, you can't distinguish them. This is your mind. You're like totally absorbed. And of course, we have probably other times when we're so absorbed in doing something, we lose sense of myself. There's no self-awareness. There's no sense of time. There's no sense of anything around us. We're totally absorbed. Now, this is not the same degree of absorption we're talking about here, but it's still the closest you could imagine. And I think we all have experience of that. Here, when you realize emptiness directly, you're so fully absorbed that nothing else appears to you but emptiness. There's no sense of me or anything else around you. That is the experience we're seeking. That is so powerful, that is so, well, like nothing we've ever experienced before, in other words. Now we really know, we experience the ultimate nature of all phenomena. And when you arise, you can't do anything other than being absorbed in that. You can't do anything other than that. Like I said, you can't know two truths simultaneously. You couldn't have love and compassion at the same time. But when you arise from that absorption, everything has changed. Everything has changed. In fact, while in absorption, you already totally eliminated some of the afflictions that I'll talk about more tomorrow. You've already eliminated some. It's like a vacuum cleaner. That mind is like a vacuum cleaner. So first, you needed to have a clean, first you needed to develop focus. So the vacuum cleaner, you know, like when all the power, if it's like dissipates all over, you have like a huge kind of, I don't know, thing there, then the power is like everywhere divided and not that much suction happens. But if you have like one of those very pointed things, then you can suction it very, right? That's a bit like that. And the power must be very strong. So direct experience would be like totally focused, very strong power, and then you can actually start removing. So I call the mind realizing emptiness directly a vacuum cleaner, right? It sounds bizarre, but it functions like a vacuum cleaner. And first, and then it grows stronger. The mind actually grows stronger. It's enhanced through our love and compassion. But we'll talk more about this tomorrow. So this part is important, that it's not enough to know emptiness. It's great to know emptiness. Oh my gosh, you know, don't get me wrong. That's a huge step forward. But it's first just conceptual. And that conceptual mind is distracted, so we need to combine it, bring it together with single-pointed focus. And even we can do that. We can focus on emptiness for 4 hours with the same focus and clarity. Great, but it's still not a vacuum cleaner. It still not, doesn't have that ability that we're looking for in something. Now we need to consistently go back to the object. Meditate again, meditate again, meditate again. Until one day, that generic image just disappears and you directly experience emptiness. That's when you actually start to remove things to becoming liberated or Buddha. So it's not that difficult. You can all understand that, right? These 2 stages, concentration and then turning it into a direct mind. That's it. And then exactly what happens on each level is pretty straightforward. It's easily explained, very difficult to do. Oh, Ashwin, you had a question, yeah.
Yeah, Geshema, can you just elaborate a bit more how realizing emptiness removes addictions and suffering?
Okay, all right. I'll talk about this a little bit more, but I'll tell you one thing. Very easy to answer, actually quite easy to answer. What is the root of all our balagan, all our problems, what is the root? What is it called?
Ignorance.
What does it perceive?
Perceives an inherent or objective.
If you realize the opposite of inherent existence, with the type of mind that is now fully focused and directly experiences emptiness, can that other mind still function in the same way? No, it gets sucked in. It's the exact opposite. You look into the cupboard, right? Of course, it's not as immediate, but a coarser level, once you experience it directly, when you look in the cupboard, you directly see it's empty. So when you realize emptiness directly, with a mental consciousness, not a sense consciousness, in this case, then you already suck something up, right? So then, if you weren't to suck up this misperception, what would it give rise to? Certain types of afflictions, karmic actions, suffering. But if that root is gone, nothing can arise from it. You see, that's why I emphasize it's the root. When you cut the root of a tree, you don't have poisonous stem, poisonous branches, poisonous leaf, poisonous fruits. Here, think of our experiences. Karma, which is karmic actions, volitional actions, influenced by our misconception and other afflictions. They're like the leaves, the branches, you know, the fruits are the karmic experiences. The leaves are like the karmic actions. The branches are like the afflictive emotions. The stem is like the self-centeredness. The root is like the root misconception. Cut the root, get rid of the rest. Do you understand? So because it is the root, the rest can't, and everything arises from it. You don't have the root, you don't have the rest.
But the tree wouldn't exist then.
Pardon?
But the tree wouldn't exist.
Yeah, the tree goes out of existence. No, but if you cut the root, like you see, like think of a poisonous tree, a poisonous tree. I'm not talking about good trees, I'm talking about a poisonous tree, the one that poisons the environment and other living beings. So let's say it's this tree that's pretty big. If you don't cut the root, if you touch, then it keeps growing. So we can temporarily reduce our anger, we can temporarily reduce our self-centeredness, we can all do that, but it comes back. And in fact, the antidote to my self-centeredness is not an antidote to my anger. The antidote to my anger is not an antidote to my miserliness. So they're very specific antidotes. They can temporarily reduce the particular mental afflictions. That's possible and that's important. But to totally eradicate it, I have to look what caused. What is really responsible for my suffering, for the volitional karma that created, the volitional actions that created these experiences I have? What is responsible for the afflictions, the mental afflictions that gave rise to my actions that lead to suffering? Which attachment is the one I have to look at most, attachment to I and mine? And what is the root of that? The root misconception. That I have to tackle.
Seems nihilistic.
Pardon?
Seems very nihilistic. Like it sounds like it exists, but it doesn't exist. But then
It sounds like it exists, but it doesn't
like
exist.
that's what.
But you want to cut that tree. You don't want that tree.
Then there would be no tree.
If there's no tree, why do you want it?
No, but but you don't go out of existence. Allez. No, the garden is still there. You are the garden. The tree is just a part of you. You are the garden. The garden is you. And they're beautiful flowers and they're wonderful, incredible potential. But this tree overshadows everything. The poison of it destroys all the other flowers, right? It destroys nature. It's this powerful, destroys the happiness in the form of different flowers, etc. The whole garden is just a mess. Imagine that beautiful garden. That's you in your mind.
But then how would it sound like once you realize emptiness? How would you how would the world sound like us?
How would the world be? That's hard for us to imagine, right? If you've always been sick your whole life with all your symptoms, what would it be like to be healthy?
There's only one way to find out.
It's one way to find out. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's like Neo in the Matrix, right? When he sees all the ones and zeros and everything as the illusion, I imagine it's...
I'm not so good with like the zeros and the ones and the algorithm and the matrix, and I don't know so much about that. I never watched the movie. I only saw these scenes. So I don't know enough about it. Unfortunately, I won't be able to answer it. But if the matrix or any other analogy helps you, by all means. But right now I chose the root because we always, well, in Tibetan they use root. They use tsawe marik batsawe, right? So they use that, and therefore the tree, and I think the garden, so it's like you're not the tree. That would mean you go out of existence. The tree is a temporary part of your mind that is not in the nature of the garden. The garden has the potential to grow so big and beautifully and be of benefit to so many. But with this poisonous tree that's unfortunately there, you're limiting yourself and you're limiting what you can do for others. That's why you try to cut the root. So don't think of it as like a nice tree that saves the environment. All right. Anyway, I hope it's a little clearer now, and we'll go more into this once we study the little path, the different levels, not the different levels of the path. Hopefully it becomes a little clearer. But right now, how does it feel like? Yeah, that's the thing. Hard for us to believe. That's the problem. I wish we could take a pill to feel what enlightenment is like for an hour. And then it would be like, there's no going back. You know, what I find very interesting is people with near-death experiences, I think they're very fortunate because they often have memories of that clear light mind of death. And they say that clear light mind of death seemed more real than their ordinary experiences. They have a much stronger sense that everything just is like an illusion. It's not as real. What is real is when they experience the actual nature of their mind. Now, if they're not Buddhist, and most people interviewed don't know about, you can develop that clear light mind, they think it's the end of everything. But they look forward to their death. They are not scared of death any longer. And their relationships with people totally changed. Right? In that way, this is huge. Look at some of these near-death experiences, because when I tell you not having had that experience, it affects you differently. But when they interview people who've had one, you go, wow, there's so much more than the ordinary. There's so much more than the ordinary. And what I also thought was really, really beautiful was that so many of them reported of going back in their life, going back to mistakes they made and seeing it exactly how it felt for the other person. If you remember that, then you don't need to go through some of the meditations, putting yourself into another person's shoe. You know, even if you just had the experience of one situation possibly, you know this is true for anything, and you watch out how you treat others. At the same time, other people reported when someone did something terrible to them, they put themselves again, or they didn't put themselves into that, mind automatically saw it from the other person's perspective, automatically seeing it from the perspective of the other person, they understood And there was no longer any holding on. They fully understood, oh, and they came back from that, and there was like no resentment in their mind, no pain in their mind, just full understanding. I think these people are very lucky. Because this is like, you don't have to do all these meditations to be convinced of it. You experienced it right there, just that part. And of course, there's so much more work to be done. But I wished we had, all of us, a near-death experience, and the emphasis is on near. Near-death experience. I wish that to everyone, without trauma and having the full awareness, because of course people sometimes do nearly die. I mean, they are dead clinically, come back and have no memory. Yeah, but I want you to have that experience. And then of course, I wish there was like a pill you could take where you have, 10 minutes are enough. 10 minutes of what it feels like to be liberated. We would all develop renunciation. Those 10 minutes would be like the most powerful drug without any negative side effects. Really, wouldn't that be lovely? The only thing similar to that I can think of is that sometimes people are given a taste of that through their Lama. So you're in the presence of your Lama, or it's through the inspiration of that Lama or the blessings or whatever. If your mind is ready, then you may have a taste of an incredible joy and inner peace, which is still not the real deal, but it gives you a taste of what's possible. And then you're much more encouraged to move in that direction, but you must have the karma to have that experience. The Buddha would do anything to give anyone the experience, but that's the thing, yeah. All right. Okay, but just knowing there are all these incredible possibilities, for me, the near-death experience, I was so convinced that they were not lying, and they're all telling a very similar story. Of course, their religious beliefs come in as well, and they have visions as part of the clear light, but that's not surprising. Why not? Our mind, of course, is very much responsible for our experiences, and they saw people from the past and so forth. I mean, even from a Buddhist point of view, you can have visions that are not actually there. It doesn't matter, it's still beneficial. So this is also explained, but what I'm more interested in is, what I'm mainly interested in is what the mind can do. That there's so much more than our ordinary life we're so obsessed with. And basically, shortchanging, or for lack of a better word, what's another word than shortchanging? Can you give me another synonym to, I hate that word, shortchanging, sounds like money. Kind of, pardon?
Like meaning, like what are we trying to
What does shortchanging mean?
Bypassing?
Pardon?
Bypassing?
Kind of like bypassing. Bypassing these incredible experiences, but we're so too busy with the ordinary. It's like almost like we have all this gold underneath the earth, but we're so busy going through the garbage on top of it. It's a bit like that, like let's say this whole earth was covered in gold, and that would give us this lasting happiness. We could sell it and harvest it, blah. But there's lots of garbage on top, and we're so busy going through the garbage and enjoying this smelly stuff. Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I've been taught this lie that there is no bliss, pure bliss. Like there's only this like small amounts of happiness. Like my mother-in-law always, when all of her children are around, she says, "This is happiness. We're all together,
Yep.
sitting at a dinner table." So it's kind of hard to believe that
Yeah.
you can have an actual lasting happiness
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
not dependent on anything.
This is why, well, first of all, there are no pills to give us a sense of it. We may not necessarily get like an insight through the Lama. So what's more convincing is really not that, because it's hard to believe, it seems like a fairy tale. What's more convincing is to just say, don't think so much about, this goal and, it's there or not. Be doubtful, that's fine. Just try to deal with your everyday kind of problems and see whether you can solve them. And see whether your mind actually becomes happier than before. So at least seeing that it's possible, whether you see your grandchildren or not, to have that happiness independent of these. Because right now we're so dependent on the external. You remember I said to you in the beginning, my mind was very dependent on the weather. Good weather, I was happy. Crappy weather, I was not. And over time, the weather's good, it's not, I don't care. You know, you become independent of so there's more happiness because the weather is no longer an issue. Or the food is incredible or not, it doesn't matter. The company is amazing or not, it doesn't matter. So what happens, I think, is you develop a stronger inner happiness, and with that, your dependence on outer factors is lessened. And that is, first of all, more freedom, and secondly, more happiness. And when you realize this really works, that degree of happiness, that degree of independence convinces you the sky is the limit. There's more to be kept. I've really felt that over so many years now, and I'm really not a good practitioner. I am really not. But I try as much as I can, especially now, whatever abstract there is, to try and make it relevant to me. How does this help me in my daily life? To not have it up there away from me on a shelf, that abstract idea that has nothing to do with my own life. You have to take it off the shelf. You have to bring it. I've tried that with you, but I can only do that much. Whenever you learn, they say in the text, see it as a personal instruction. It was set for you to digest in such a way that it becomes relevant to your life. This is the true, then you bring the Dharma into your life. It could, of course, still be a hobby. I talk about Dharma being a hobby. You know, do it once a week. I feel a little sad or something. I haven't done my hobby, so I'll do a little bit of Dharma. Well, you can bring it into your daily life and not just make it a hobby. Make it a full-term job, or, you know, it's not paid that well, but it's paid in terms of the rewards. They're so much greater than that. But this is where you have to bring the abstract onto a more realistic level. And I started my teaching style I changed my teaching style. Some years ago, I remember people reported back to me, oh yeah, that was interesting, I didn't understand anything, but and then I thought, oh, that's not right. These words and all these concepts, you know, after some time you understand them. But you have to understand them. It's possible to teach the craziest stuff, the most difficult things, and still make them relevant, because they are. And we learned how to do that. So I kind of changed my style a little bit. Because if I understand this, everyone can. I'm total average. So therefore, this is what we need to learn. And when you do that, then bliss, I don't care. Actually, in comparison to what I experienced 10 years ago, this is bliss. Right? So the bliss of a Buddha, okay, that's fine. But I'm already, in comparison to what was before, in my insecurity and my dependence on the external that was totally unreliable, that is gone to a certain degree, which is why I'm so much happier. And even when terrible stuff happens, I bounce back faster. Resilience has improved. I told you about that line, like Jetsuma Densapamo talked about. Absolutely. And everyone I know who's done this long enough, they've changed. I can tell they've changed. They're a lot less upset. Something doesn't go their way. No reaction. Okay. It sucks. Okay, let's find a solution. Life becomes so much easier. That I already call bliss. Does that make sense? Right? And it's again this idea. If you can change the situation, why get upset? Really, it's people say like, but you do get upset automatically. No, you learn to control it. You can totally learn to control it. Absolutely, you can control anything about your mind. The only thing you can learn to control. So when a problem arises, and I watched, I mean, this is also spending time with Tibetans. That really helps because they usually don't get upset easily. Really, they have that's very hard to get them upset. So when something happens, they're like, You know, like as a German person, I would go, oh, shit, right? Like, oh, and when I was like a teenager, I would break things or something. Bloody hell. You know what, you want to hear something really funny? I was such an angry teenager, and even younger than that, my mom wanted me to dance ballet because she couldn't dance ballet. And I was the worst ballet dancer there was. I always had to dance in the back. Ballet. And I had like these skinny legs with like, you know, skinny legs are good, but my knees came out like this, and then the rest was skinny. And then they took these pictures of us on these pointing toes. And I thought it was so elegant, but then I look at it now, my shoulders were all hinged, you know, like my skinny legs weren't straight. So I looked incredibly ridiculous. And so eventually I said, like, I put my foot down, I don't want to do ballet, I'm the worst at it. And I was able to stop when I was 12. And then my grandmother wanted us to play the piano, and my mom wanted the piano, which was in my grandmother's house. So my grandmother, my dad's mom, gave us the piano. Now I had to play the piano. And it was just as bad as playing the piano. But the piano made me so angry, I used to kick the piano. My dad imitated me. He said, he once imitated me. I never realized that everyone heard it, you know? I was just angry, I was doing my thing. So like he was down, he had his office at home. He would partly be at home and do his work, which was lovely to have my dad around. And he was just so laid back and so much fun, so it was always great to have him nearby. And he would imitate me. And he'd be going, do, 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 bong! I can't get, do, 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 bong! I made a mistake, right? Boom, boom, twice, 3 times, 4 times. And the last bit would be that I would take the lid and go, wham! And then I was done. So that was my practice, piano practice. I studied the flute first as well, and it had everywhere like these things because I would hit it. I never had a pretty flute because sooner or later I would hit something with it, and it always looked, and I was always looking forward to a new one until I started practicing and hitting things with it. So I never had a pretty flute. And the piano at some point was so destroyed that my mother had to put some plastic on it. And I wanted it to be pink. And I got a pink piano. I did actually, but then I stopped playing. So this was me. I was crazy. I was like out of it, you know. I was full of anger, and I didn't get my way, and I'd be like, oh, angry. And that's difficult, getting angry, right? Really difficult. It takes over, and it didn't solve any problems. I mean, with my friends, you know, I got angry and we'd have a fight or something. So that didn't solve the problem. And I really learned with the Tibetans not to get angry. Okay, look at the situation, and it doesn't mean I don't. I have my moments, but I can feel it and go, let it go. I can feel let it go. And the thing is, like, can I change the situation? Okay, I try. Okay, there's a solution, so I'm just as happy. There's a solution, so I can work towards it. But if there's no solution, what's the point in getting angry? I'll just accept it and find a different way. It's like that, you know? It's like water coming down a hill. It can go through whatever obstructs it. Okay, it doesn't get angry, it keeps running. But sometimes it has to go and take a detour and gets to flow down. You know, our mind should be like that, just keep flowing. And the Tibetans really practice that. And so obstacles in my life, they don't upset me. Why would I? I mean, I get angry because I get upset, but if I don't get upset, then I don't get angry. And so dealing with not getting upset. And that's bliss. My life is really happier. And the more I think of the Dharma, the better. Now, the best time is talking to you guys about the Dharma. I'm so happy because the Dharma is all around me, right? I'm actually really happy. I couldn't do 6 hours of that if it was something else. I could not. Washing dishes? No way. If it wasn't with the mind, and I don't think of the Dharma, it's very difficult for me to keep it all running the whole time. So this is what makes me so happy, right? Or translating or whatever, you know, it's like still, you hear the Dharma from someone else. Yes?
Just a quick, very practical
Yes,
So the-
practical is good.
From yesterday.
Yes.
So after the evening meditation, I went back to my room and I saw a big spider on the door. And it was inside my room. So I was like a bit scared. I thought, shall I just ignore it and go to sleep and pretend it's not there? But I wasn't very happy with that. It was a bit of fear. And then I thought, okay, what if I approached it with compassion, the spider? And I had a cup, and there's this information thing which has a plastic.
Yeah, so it's hard, like it has
So
some.
I took the cup and the plastic paper.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to very slowly, with compassion. I had it in the other hand. The cup was in there.
Yeah.
With compassion, and because I think it stabilized my.
Yeah, mind.
Stabilized
Yeah,
me.
your fear. Yeah.
So I was able to go very slowly. Then I slowly put the cup. I slid
You put the slit of paper. You close the cup.
Open the door.
Put it outside. Throw it in your neighbor's room. No, I'm kidding. no, I'm kidding.
And I put it outside, and I was like, compassion.
Wow, it works.
It worked.
It works. Oh, that's very good. That's very good, especially with something like spiders are for me still very difficult. Spiders that just look so terrifying, right? Yeah.
It was like this big.
Oh, just the thought of it. I sometimes make myself watch it on TV, right? And think that's been my mother. I've been so close, so loving. I can kind of look at it on the TV now, but I get what you're saying. Wonderful. You did a great job. It's easier to do it with things like little puppies and stuff. That's much easier. With things we think are cute, right?
I also thought in my mind that as I approach it, if it runs away,
Oh.
I'll just leave it. It's okay.
Oh, wow. Well done. I have a hard time with that one, I would still call a nun who's not scared.
Teachers, they don't want to be next to us anyway. So
Usually they just take off anyway. But you know what's funny? Our fear of spiders, what I've learned is it is not innate. It's not inborn. Why? Because we watched I remember I was not allowed to watch TV, and of course I watched TV. My mom worked for a TV company, and they knew how harmful it was, so I had the strictest time, the greatest time restricts from all my friends, but I just went to my friends. And so there was a movie called Hitchcock's Tarantula. I watched that secretly, and that really, that took care of it. And there's another one called Frogs. It's like about all these insects that kill people, like spiders. It was so terrible, that movie, another Hitchcock movie. And I watched all of them. So I got terrified of spiders. But I thought it was inborn. However, when I came to the Nunnery, when I started living there, I realized that one of my friends, when she saw a spider, I freaked out. She was like, "Where's the spider?" Oh, okay. And the legs of the spider come here, and she's like, "Oh, money by my home," and she puts it outside. And when she freaks out, do you want to know when she freaks out? When kittens come into her room. She's scared of kittens. Because we had a cat in the Nunnery, and they had kittens, and they would start running around, and suddenly in her room, and she was like, get the kitten out. And I'm like, are you serious? This is so cute. And she's like, no, I had kittens. It freaked me out. And I would pick it up and get like, and she's like, no. She's like we were afraid of rats or snakes. So yeah, sure enough, whenever there was a kitten in her room, she'd call me. And one day, the windows don't really close in the nunnery I'm in because they're not from wood but from metal. I could literally hear the spider go through. I could hear this noise coming from the direction, and this, no, I'm exaggerating, that big came in. And I was like, Didela, right? You have to come. And so she came, sure enough, she picked it up, and that was it. So now I know what to do. I've not even done the glass thing. I have a device from Germany now. I brought that with me. it's like a thing. Yeah, you slide it open and you can. But I'm so worried the spider doesn't fit in there. I would still call Dedenla. Geshema Dedenla, I should call her. She's a Geshema now, but I still call her to take care of it. And I think she would still call me to get the kittens out of her room. So we've got a good arrangement. So I'm just saying that because our fear of spiders, it showed me it's not inborn. It's definitely, if you're from Australia, more likely, you know, to grow up with it. But our spiders are not even poisonous here. I don't think so. And I don't mind mosquitoes. No, I don't mind scorpions as much as I mind spiders, although they could sting you. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. That is such a good example. Compassion, 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 right? To bring it into our life and see how it really works. Well, first of all, it makes us feel better, and it just really works in every way. So wonderful, you've really done the right thing. Put it into practice. Anyway, it's time to take our lunch now. After lunch, we'll do this. So sorry if now it'll be husband. We haven't really done emptiness yet, but you have the recording, you have your notes, so hopefully.
Okay, I'll be half enlightened by the end.
Okay. So we go through this, and then we go through emptiness once again and do a meditation on it. Okay? So yes. And tomorrow, as I said, the path. Okay, enjoy lunch and see you afterwards.